Now let me introduce to our speaker, Mr. Sidhartha Sahoo, sir, founder and CEO of Spotline Incorporation. Mr. Sidhartha Sahoo, sir, graduated from IIT Kharagpur in Electronics and Communication Engineering. After a brief stint of working in India, he moved to Silicon Valley and progressed his career in technology field. He graduated in dual degree MBA program from Columbia Business School and Haas Business School, UC Berkeley. After spending 20 years in various management positions, he started Spotline. Currently, Spotline is focused on creating software specifically bringing efficiency in drug development process for pharmaceutical companies.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mahanti. And, so is my, can you all see my screen?
Yes, yes, it is visible.
Perfect. So thank you all professors and welcome to the students. As I said, I will prepared few slides, but most of the slides are just a driver for this discussion. We'll talk about sales and why sales is important in a career or an organization. Talk a little bit about sales functions to give a structure to the talk. And then talk about different types of salesperson. And then talk about what are the skills needed. And then we'll conclude with some questions and answers. And before I start my introduction, but I can tell that I am an accidental salesperson. I never wanted to be a salesperson, but the organization I was working was not doing well. So I told our CEO that you should fire all the salespeople. And he said, then who will take this role? And I said, I will do it. And I was very successful. So it's not that I was a trained salesperson. So this whole talk, I'll talk from my experience, what makes a good salesperson. So hopefully, what's my interest at the end of this lecture? If one of the students who is listening takes a career in sales and becomes successful, I think I got my what I wanted out of this lecture. With that, Srikanth had said that I should introduce Spotline, our company, to the students and the professors. So I'll spend few minutes to talk about what is Spotline. We tried 10 years ago. We are a company focused on pharmaceutical companies. Primarily, we try to see our products and services, how it helps the drug development process, taking from one molecule to the medicine what most of people take when they have some health issues. We help companies how to do that, starting from research and quality and safety of the medicine. So we create different sophisticated systems for it or maintain those systems. And that's how we service this industry. So we have around 200 plus employees throughout the world. So we have offices here in United States, but in addition to that, our primary offices locations are in India. And we opened our newest office is in Bhubaneswar, what Srikanth said earlier. And we also have offices in London and Cairo to serve our European customers. So what we do, in essence, our practice, we go to different pharmaceutical companies and solve their problems by co-innovating. Last 10 years, we must have changed our organization 10 times to focus on something, what is the current problem. But at the same time, we are moving fast, innovating But at the same time, we look at the client satisfaction, and we take pride in that we have never lost a customer. Once somebody is a customer, we continue serving them. So that's why our client satisfaction is 92%. And to the students, I will say, when you come to the job workforce, look for this. Whoever is your client, and if you can make sure that the client is satisfied, the rest takes care of it, because you cannot control everything. So if you have to take one thing into your goal, like what you should look for always, that look for the client satisfaction. So with that, I will move to talk about, unless there is any questions on Spotline, I'll move on to talk about the sales readiness, what we have intended for this talk. So maybe one question I want to ask first. Do you want it to be interactive, or we should just keep the questions to the end?
It will be better at the end, because
Okay.
our audience is familiar with that.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, so I'll go through the slides and talk about few things, and once at the end, can go into the question answer. So what is sales function? And many of you may be already knowing, but I wanted to go into a little bit definition so that it can provide a structure. So what is sales in a corporate function? It's that simple. Sales is the only function which brings revenue into the organization. There are many other important functions in a corporate world. You need HR, which is equally important. Many of you are HR professionals. And there is like a regular administration, you need that. There is product has to be manufactured, or even a service. There has to be delivery. It's equally important. But the number one thing is sales. If you don't have sales, there is no revenue in. So in some way, this is one of the most important functions in a corporate. And it's very, I'll say, it's pretty less understood, because you don't find a BTech in sales, or you don't see. We try to find people who are good and look for some skills, which I will talk about, and think that they will be a salesperson. Nobody goes to school saying that, okay, I graduated in sales. So it's less understood, but at the same time, it is one of the most important functions. Any company, when it is, let's say there is a company struggling, that means they don't have sales. And once you don't have sales or revenue, you have the other problem, your expense, and you cannot innovate. You cannot be a sustainable organization. So that's why it's most important. And then I think we'll be talking mostly on the corporate sales, like what is the sales role and what type of roles. If we look at in a corporate sales organization, when some of you, maybe the students, when you take up this role, there is one of the type of role which is called inside sales. It's very important to know the difference between these sales roles. So the inside salesperson, what they do, they're doing a cold calling. And what is a cold calling? You are trying to reach people who have no idea about your product or services, or most likely even the company. Let's say if I am doing this job for Spotline, my company, when I pick up the phone and calling somebody, the other side of a person, he has no idea who am I. Most likely he will even disconnect the phone, who will not even interested. He may be busy doing something else. So the chance of getting the person converted or getting to be even have interest in my product or services is almost next to zero. But still, this is one of the most important function in a sales person, because you have that one chance. You have that 10 seconds to convince the other person why he should listen to you to start with. Forget about even be a buyer at the end. So in last 10 seconds, what I talked about, that is the essence of a salesperson. He's trying to convince you why you should trust him, that you should rely on his words, that you will buy from him. Then comes to field sales. These are in our sales career, we call hunters. They are the people who are working with customers. Most likely, they have already got something called a warm lead. And the leads are something the person has already shown some interest in the product or services. And that's how you are already in the field. You are already engaged with the person. So these are pretty important career. Most of the people graduate from inside sales to be field sales. So they are trying to convert what is called, they have a leads, and you get from the leads to be actually a customer or a contact. And many of the people are sales, these hunters, lack of better words, they're called a transactional salesperson. At the end of the day, what they're doing, they're converting these leads to be a customer, and they're getting a purchase order for the organization or getting the order. And most of the salespeople stop there and they don't worry about it. They move on, they get their commission, and they are happy with this field sales. So I'll talk a little bit more why to be a successful person, what else you should do. Then there is another type of salesperson who are there called customer success in a large organization. Most of the people actually are in this falls into customer success because they are making sure the customer is not only happy, what else they need. Many of the customers in our field start with very small, but end up being a lifelong customer. And what we call farming. You have the land, you already, or you have got the customer as your first order, but how do you work to make it a bigger and more closer customer? And that's we call the farming. And there is a concept called long-time customer value. If you are working on a prospect, that's the first thing an organization looks at. It's not what is the first sales order you are getting. What is the long-term value in over the period of whatever, around 6 years, when averagely they say customers' demands slows down. But then how do you work with them to create new demands? So let's say in a 10-year period, if you are getting, let's say, whatever, 10 crores or $1 million from them, that's considered a successful customer. But the first one, maybe only 10 lakhs or whatever, $10,000, you are getting an order. And this customer success goes back to my first slide, what I said in Spotline, we have 90% success. Then once you are successful in all these roles, you get into a sales management role. And I added that last role because it's one of the most difficult roles. You see, being a salesperson is hard by itself, but being a sales manager is not that you are an individual contributor. You have to motivate the other salespeople to be successful. You are working with them to make sure that they are successful. So this is, with that, I did talk about a little bit what are the different types of salesperson, but let's go into these sales people based on where they are working. To start, most of the salespeople in the world, they are working in some kind of a retail salesperson. This is different. This is not, maybe some of you will end up in retail salesperson. So I added that. Here, you are not looking for a customer. Most of the customers are coming to the store or for whatever, the product or services. Let's say you are working on Airtel. I'm just taking the name because when I was in India, I went there to buy a SIM card. The person is already there, but doesn't mean that he's made up his mind. He may be just visiting the store to check how is it better than Jio or. But there will be some people, they already are there. They have decided they just want to buy something, but they're not sure what they want to buy. There are 10 different phones or there are different plans. So whoever this retail salesperson, they have to look after that. They have to be really good understanding what are the things available from Airtel. Sometimes I go to these retail stores and they say, oh, I am new today, I don't know. That's not acceptable. If you are standing there and meeting a prospective customer, you better know what is the product or services of that organization. And then you have to convince him, the other person who is walking through the door, he has interest, but he is not, until he writes the check or pays you the cash, he is not a customer. So till that time, you have to understand that person, make sure his requirements are filled, and he pays you. That's at least the transaction is completed. But at the same time, it's not tomorrow if this phone doesn't work or his plan has problem, he'll come back and ask for his money back. So you have to make sure not only the transaction is completed, it is executed properly so that he is a satisfied customer. You'll go, then maybe there will be a survey, then how was the sales experience, or you will tell 10 other people that Airtel was very good. That's a successful sales transaction. But you have to understand this retail salesperson is primarily an order taker. He's not there to have a very long-term relationship with this customer. Many times you go and to a shop and buy something, and then you are done with that specific transaction. At the same time, sometimes let's say you are going to an appliance store, you buy one appliance, then your experience is better, then you buy the next appliance from there. So there are exceptions where how this salesperson should get this person or the prospective buyer as a lifetime customer. That's the ultimate goal. In every sales role, once you have somebody as a customer, first objective is to get him converted as a customer. Second thing, is how do we have him as a lifetime customer? Anytime he needs something, he'll come to your store or your organization to buy it. Then let's go to the professional salesperson. So maybe where we start many of the, if we take the retail salesperson in this type of organization, let's say in a Spotline, they will be called professional salesperson, whether it is inside sales or any of the roles I mentioned. That's how you start the professional. You are one of those roles in my previous slide. If I look at whether you are inside sales, field sales, or customer success, any of these four are you are in this bucket of professional salesperson. In addition to know everything where I talked about retail salesperson, you convert that products or services. Let's say somebody in my organization, he has to understand what are the products, what do they do, and be really proficient so that when a customer or the prospective customer comes in, he converts them. So what do we talk about something? First thing you should know about the organization or the product or services, or the elevator speech. You have to know what we do in very succinct way, so that when you are taking an elevator with somebody, you can tell that 5 seconds or 10 seconds is so important. That's why we call it elevator speech. If, like I said, what we do in Spotline, we may be doing 20 other things. But one thing I said, we help pharmaceutical companies in their drug development process. It's a very vast thing, but at least somebody quickly came to know, okay, if he's not a pharmaceutical company, we have less interest in talking to them. If it is not doing drug development, we have less interest talking to them. He may be doing drug discovery, he may be doing drug marketing. So that's why this is so important to know your product very closely. So you tell the prospective buyer exactly what you do. So, so that you are not wasting his time, or more importantly, even your time. What we call in sales people, time is money, and you don't want to waste anybody's time. At the same time, if you get the right customer, you have to spend a lot of time to convert him. So better you know from beginning who is the right customer for you. Then goes to the closer salesperson. This is the one of the people who are most successful salesperson are closers. And what is mean by closers? It's very important skills. So I wanted to add that here, because they are the final a salesperson who are getting the PO or the purchase order. You'll see sometimes a junior salesperson is given in the beginning to what is called a cultivate a sales process, but finally the sales executive will come who will close the deal, and that's why they call the closers. And it's very different skill set. But at the same time, every good salesperson should be closer in somewhat in their career. And they are the people who get the maximum commission or something. One thing I did not tell in the beginning, sales is a function which is the most rewarding function. I don't want any of the students to take sales as a career thinking, oh, it will make the most money. But it is true. In an organization, even in my organization, I want our salespeople to even earn more money than me. If I write a better paycheck at the end of the year, I know that the organization is doing well. When you know the organization is not doing well, when your salespeople are not paid well. So the salespeople is a career where you can get the maximum salary, but that is not the reason why one should be a salesperson. We'll come to know a slide where I said what kind of skills you should develop to be a good salesperson. Then comes to the last fourth point is consultative salesperson. And that is like a mixture of all this. You have a professional salesperson, you are also a closer, but you are a consultative salesperson. And most of the people, let's say in our organization, I want eventually them to be a consultative salesperson. They talk to the customer, not even thinking that they are buying. They try to solve the customer's problems. Always that is the goal, solve customer's problem. Customer will automatically buy from you. If you solve their problem, they have to buy from somewhere, and then they will buy from you. So with that, maybe we'll go to what are the skills? What you need to be a good salesperson. And that's in the true spirit of upskilling, or what are the things I have learning as IIMT's goals. So I put these skills, and this is not exhaustive skills, but this came to my mind. First thing, in a salesperson, people think, oh, you should be speaking well, you should give good speech. Yeah, this is important, but the most important thing for a salesperson to be a good listener. Because when you are working or the customer is working to you, you don't know anything about the customer. So before telling about yourself or your products or services, if you listen to the other person, what is even this person's need is very important. And most of the customers, I'll say this, they don't want to be sold, what is called. They want to buy. And you don't want to sell them rather than let them buy. It's a subtle difference, but that is how I said that you should be a good listener. Listen to them. It's okay not to speak in the beginning because they have already interest. So if you listen to their problem and articulate how your product or services fits their requirement, then you are one step closer. Then it is important to be very good in communication. If many times customers, by the time they checking out your product or services, they already have an interest. But to generate that interest, they had to have interest in you first. So many times the salesperson is representing the organization. They are the face of the organization. So communication skills is very important, both written and spoken communication. So when you pick up the phone, different etiquettes. So we can go on to each of these communication skills and hone in how important it is. But every time you write an email, it should be very professional. It should be succinct. They should know what you are trying to get from it. So then the next thing is follow-up. This is one thing differentiates good salespeople and not so successful salespeople. You have to follow up, and you have to follow up timely. Once you don't follow up timely, the customer moves on. They think that you are not interested in their business. So commitment to follow up is very important. Sometimes we start, let's say, a leads or an opportunity, and by the time they buy from us, it's like a couple of years. So you have to be not only follow up, you have to have the commitment to follow up. And what we call the nurturing a customer. Once somebody has an interest in your product or services, you don't want to lose them. Whatever is their need, in the process, you keep fulfilling them, and eventually they may buy from you and they may not buy from you. But if you don't follow up, surely they will not buy. And if I want to also add another thing, you have to have a little outgoing personality to be a good in sales career. Nothing wrong being not outgoing, but in a sales career, you have to have an interest in other people, what they do. It's not about your product and services. Most of the time, people buy from other people. So if you have an interesting personality, or you can develop that personality, then people like to buy from you. And how will you have interesting personality? You have to have a very different interest. You know, what we call in US or talk about weather, that doesn't take you much. Oh, it's too hot here. It just ends there. But let's say you talk nowadays, whatever in India, this IPL is going on. You better know what is happening today or at that moment. Because the other person, if he has an interest in cricket, then you have a conversation. Or I do a lot of running. And, you know, when I meet people, eventually that comes up and then we talk about that. And then you should keep a note that this person, whether you keep mental note or physical note, doesn't matter. But the next time you are meeting that person, then he's talking about what you talked about your hobby. Maybe you are interested in music. I know one of my customer, he is into writing Hindi poems. So I attended some, like is what they call the poetry sessions. And I pleasantly was surprised that I really like it. So now when I meet him, we talk about that, the poetry sessions. I am not a poet, but I can appreciate it. And he loves to talk about it. So we have a connection other than work. And many of the successful salespeople will see that they develop this kind of outside of the work relationship. It has nothing to do with your products or services. And that's how you can get some customers, lifetime customers. And it is good for you also. It is a fulfilling, not a career, then it's a fulfilling life. And you have to have a helpful attitude. If you are not trying to helpful and you are just trying to make the sales transaction, get your commission and go away, those are the salespeople actually who has made a bad name for this sales as a career. They are called, in lack of better words, sleazy salespeople. And I don't want any of you to be that. Be a helpful person. Try to see where you can help the customer. And if the customer gives you feedback that they did not get their product or services up to their satisfaction, try to help them. Granted, there are difficult customers. Sometimes they may not be satisfied, but that number should be really low. So I think with that, I am ready to do a conclusion on my things. So we talked about how to build a successful career in sales. And why should somebody be interested? As I said, because it is very important for organization. The most successful people, when you join an organization, let's say after graduation, and you want to be the CEO of the company one day, if you track most of the people, what they have done, yeah, you can build a career in legal, you can be corporate counsel and be the CEO. You can go from HR, you can go from anywhere to be the CEO. But the 80 to 90% of the CEOs come from the sales background because they have understood the customer's pain. They have understood what it takes to convert a interested person to be customer of the company. So that's the only reason also you can be interested in this as a career. So we talked about what are the basic skills you should develop to be successful in sales. And to conclude, we started saying sales is about generating revenue, nothing else. It's very binary. You know, somebody is a good programmer or not. It's very hard to decipher. Sales is one thing, it's objective, it's maths. How much money you brought in for the company. So you get it. So that's why it's very easy. It's objectively, we can define whether you are a successful salesperson or not. But how do you get that? You build relationship. What I talked about, your lifetime customer. And staying competitive. As a salesperson, you give feedback to the organization because you are interfacing with the customer. You are giving the feedback. What is the deficiency in the product or services? And that's what drives the innovation. So a sales touches not just the prospective customer or existing customers, but it touches other part of the organization, what are helping him to be a good salesperson. So with that, I will end my talk.